Okay. Okay. Mr. Gopal, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hope you
Okay.
can all hear me clearly, right?
Yes, now it's better.
Yeah, great. So, and yeah, thanks for this opportunity and thanks for those kind words in the introduction. And I know Uma Maheshwari garu met me in 2019 November at GHCI DevFest, and unfortunately could not make time to give the session. But she has been persistently following up, and I really thank you for that. And this opportunity is really, I cherish this because there are almost more than 100 enthusiastic minds that I'm talking to, and this is so great because all the energy that these guys, this generation of students has, and I'm fortunate that I get to say something, probably influence at least few people here towards right direction in their career, so that that would really, you know, achieve my goal of giving back to the community from where I learned. And today, let me present my screen. Let me know once you guys can see my screen.
Yes, Gopal, we can see.
Great. So today we're going to talk about, as the title says, grow as a geek. So a geek is somebody who is well versed in terms of whatever he does in his craft. So if you want to be a geek at software, so I'm gonna say a few tips and tricks and few habits that I sort of cultivated and I learned from others. And by the way, as they already introduced, I'm Gopal Akshintala, and this is my website, overfullstack.ga, where I blog about few things, and you can also watch my previous talks. And my Twitter handle, Gopal Akshintala, you can follow me there, and you can DM me afterwards, even after the session, if you have any doubts. I'll be happy to answer. And this is not a motivational talk for sure. I wouldn't be telling you to work hard or follow this or have motivation and all that, because you already know all of those, and you are here by because of you already have that motivation. So what I'm going to tell you are few tips and few of the pipelines that you can actually put in your day-to-day work, and if you start and the habits that you should start at an early stage of your career, so that they stick to you and you actually hone those habits as you grow, so that they would exponentially make you a better software engineer in the industry. And unfortunately, because of the time, I can't go in depth into anything, but I'll be giving you pointers, and I'll be sharing the slide deck obviously towards the end, so that you can go back and search around those terms that I'll be talking to you about. And I will also see a little demo about GitHub towards the end, and I'll be answering the questions that you guys have given me. And just starting with what we're going to discuss today, we're going to start with coding. Of course, coding is the core part of a software engineer, and I'll talk to you about a few things how you can hone coding, but not in terms of like, hey, you have to practice. Everybody knows that. I'm going to just say a few things that you might not have learned from your college, but then you would know once you enter into your job. And I would also talk about how you should make a brand out of yourself. So you're not the company you're working for. You should make a brand. It should be somebody, when somebody searches your name in Google, you should have certain pages there. So I'm going to talk about how you should and how you can achieve that. And I'm also going to touch on around interviews and what people expect these days from a software engineer as you grow towards your career, what things that you should build. And I also talk about how you should learn things. Learning in here is totally different from learning in a college where you have a stipulated syllabus and you kind of probably understand that and write in exams and probably don't need them afterwards. But learning in your job is totally different, and software engineers have to learn throughout their life. Otherwise, you just kind of get outdated. So I'm going to talk about a few techniques you can use for that. And in the end, obviously, I'll tell you how to be a high paid engineer. So obviously, being paid high is the best incentive when you are entering into software industry, especially with all that stress that software industry and engineers go through. Pay is something what motivates all of us. And I'm going to tell you what exactly you have to do to be high paid. Is there a question? I see some. Okay, I'm moving on. You can interrupt me, by the way, if you have any questions. I hope Uma Maheshwar Garu would be looking at the questions in the chat. I won't be able to see the chat, so if you have questions and the questions are appropriate, please pause me. I can answer them as and when if there's something that is not clear. And yeah, let's start with the coding, the most fun part of our job. Right, this is the most fun part. Believe me, rest everything is not so fun. Coding is something. If you are motivated towards, if you love coding, obviously you should get into software. If you don't like coding, please don't even try because you will suffer. So you have to be passionate towards this craft called coding. But this is not a craft as such. We're going to talk about it. But then we'll see how what makes you more productive as a coder. So first thing, and the simplest thing, although not many people say this, you have to master an IDE. So this is just like for a musician, a keyboard, he carries his keyboard everywhere he goes. So you as a coder, your instrument is your IDE. IDE is integrated development environment. You must have used a few in your college, like Eclipse or something. I have some recommendations that I kind of got it by experimenting with few, and I love IntelliJ, and IntelliJ is something, it makes you really productive if you master that. And it's something, obviously, almost all the companies give you licenses. And if you're a student, you can get a free license as well in the GitHub. If you sign up for GitHub students, which I'll tell you later. And there's a free community edition as well. And I'm not marketing this product. This is something I use in every day while coding in my job, actual job. And there are many engineers who use it. And if you start doing it from today itself, you will actually get used to all the shortcuts and all the features this IDE provides. And there's one time where the IDE was teaching me how to code. There was so many suggestions that you actually can take up to correct your own code. And you should really learn a lot about this. And VS Code is something pretty popular done by Microsoft. And these days this is really getting popular. And this is a lightweight editor. You might not see as many features as you see in IntelliJ. But the reason why you use VS Code over IntelliJ at times, because if you just want to make few changes, like IntelliJ is pretty heavy. It kind of takes a little time to boot, and it takes time to index. But VS Code is pretty fast. And probably you can also use it for your DS algo practices, where because in real time you got to write it on a notepad. We're going to also touch upon that. So starting with a simpler tip, let's get into something more serious. So yeah, we all think like, what programming language should I learn? And you keep seeing this blog posts and videos about top programming languages in 2021. That's totally BS. There is no top programming languages. There is no one programming language. If you ask me today, as a language geek, I love learning programming languages. There's no point in learning all the programming languages. You wouldn't go anywhere. It's just like learning all the South Indian languages. What would it get you to? You wouldn't really have to use it every day. At the same time, you can almost manage with English or Hindi or a lot of agnostic languages that we have. So it's all about you mastering one language, going in depth of one language. I would personally recommend Kotlin. Kotlin is a modern language which has been emerging these days, and which is marketed as better Java, and it is a total replacement of Java. And I'm betting on it that it would gain popularity almost equal to Java in future. But the reason I'm not saying that because it has more job opportunities as of now. It might not have as many job opportunities as Java. And obviously, you should pick Java as your first language. But then, what a modern programming language offers you is something, the semantics, why certain things are done in certain way. You got to understand those rather than cramming on the syntax. Syntax is nothing. And especially if you have an idea like IntelliJ, it takes care of all your syntactical problems. You just have to understand why there are certain concepts in certain language which are not there in other language, and what problem is this language solving. Like certain languages are used for certain domains, like JavaScript majorly is used for web. And why is that? And Kotlin, of course, has it's a multi-platform language. You can learn Kotlin and you can use it to write desktop applications, backend servers, or web applications, something. You can just search around and see there is a vibrant community as well. It's an open source language, by the way. And it's, of course, done by JetBrains, who are same people who are building IntelliJ. And one more thing is you should use it as a tool to master the ecosystem. The ecosystem is something which grows every day exponentially in software. You keep hearing a new framework coming almost every week. So you kind of get lost with all this lot of jargon that you might not actually need. But take a language. For me personally, I took this Kotlin, and then Kotlin, because it's a replacement for Java, it had all the ecosystem, Java ecosystem rebooted in a modern way. So that I was learning why this was done that way previously, like 10 years ago, and why is this in the reboot taken out, or why are the new things getting in? So you should use that language as a tool rather than it is your competence. Language is not your competence. It's just a way to express your code. And hands-on practice. I know you all must be already knowing it. I can't, can't complete this without stressing on this. You need hands-on practice. You wouldn't learn anything just by, reading about it, just like mathematics. And you know that already, but I'm going to tell you something, how you can practice. You need something that gives you instant feedback. So let us say you learned about something and you actually have to go and tinker on that. Like you have to experiment on that, see how it works. And for that, you got to build an infrastructure for yourself, and no one gives it to you. So I personally, like, I have this something called my lab on my GitHub, and this is a very shitty repository. There is no I don't have any structure or anything. Because it's totally for my personal use. And I sort of built it in a way that if I learn something, I can kind of just go there, write few lines of code, and kind of get an output and get a feel of how it's working. So you, as personally, whatever suits to you, should build a laboratory for yourself, a personal laboratory in your system, and which you should, of course, upload into cloud and GitHub, which I'm going to tell you, and which kind of gives you instant feedback. So this is something even in every profession people do. In software, obviously, this is not evidently set that you should have a lab. And scratch files and IntelliJ are also something where you can get kind of do tinkering and get instant feedback, and you can read about it. Obviously, can't get into it. And there are certain tools you can sort of learn to quickly make POCs, proof of concepts, which you might be already knowing. So once you learn something, this kind of you should be able to quickly set up and get onto it. So imagine if your setup itself takes a half day, you wouldn't really get motivated to experiment. So always make sure you put some time to set up things so that when you actually want to jump into it, you sort of, it's kind of all there and you can just go and tinker it. So these are certain tools, and Git is something you might have already heard about. It's a version control, and Maven or Gradle are things like they're dependency management tools. You can read about them. It's just like if you need a library to build something, you normally download that library and put it in your class path or something, but they would actually take care of that. And NPM YARN in web development, Docker is something which addresses the problem of, hey, this works on my machine. You can't ship your machine to a customer, obviously. So you got to make it work in an isolated environment. So imagine Docker is something, you have a system within your system, which is not kind of tinkered, so that when you make it work there, you can ship this system to everybody. And it's like virtual system, virtual machine, you might be knowing already. But the best part is you can script it. Like you can say that, hey, I need a machine which has XYZ, which I need Linux, I need Java of this version, I need this, etc. So that's how Docker is useful, and you can read more about it. And all of this like takes years. I'm just telling you a lot of information today. Don't get lost. These take years of practice and years of knowing things. You can't learn it in a month or probably in a year. So I'm just giving you pointers so when you actually encounter, you would know what it is. So by the way, I'm mostly predominantly a Java developer, so I'll be talking more on the JVM side if I'm going technical. But if there are people about web, I can also give you, help you if I know certain things, because I also have experience working on web. So you can probably stop me or ask me towards the end if you have any questions to the web. And yeah, now we have talked about code. Let's get into some abstract concepts and the habits that you should cultivate as a coder. And the first one in my list is test-driven development. And this is a methodology, but then you don't have to exactly kind of follow what the methodology says, I'll tell you the gist of it. All it says is you got to know how to test before you start actually working on it. And this kind of mindset is something you need to cultivate as when you are young itself. I mean, as you grow towards like 4 or 5 years, you get habituated to certain way of developing. And it's very difficult to actually think the other way, because normally the actual simple natural way is to, you start developing and then you start testing. All right. But then this kind of inverts your thinking and start cultivating that thinking. It's very resistant. Like you would face a lot of resistance while you think in the initial days, hey, why should I start with testing and then develop? But then once you actually get into it, this kind of improves the quality of software that you will be shipping. So, and the tests, if you are a Java developer, have heard about JUnit, you sort of can use JUnit to write simple tests, and you sort of write simple unit of code which kind of satisfies this test and keep on iteratively building it. So I'll give you an example. Imagine if you're building a car. So you wouldn't test the car once everything is assembled, right? You would test the engine first, and you would test some dashboard separately in an isolated environment, and then you integrate them, and then you actually put the car. And the more chances the car works as expected, unless there are some integration issues. So similarly, code this mistake, like normally early stage developers do, we kind of write a lot of code and then we start testing. It really gets difficult to understand where the problem is. And the moment you understand how to test, you actually understood the problem towards in the level that you actually can code. Most of the times we start coding and then we remember, oh, I think I forgot to ask this requirement. I forgot, hey, what happens if this is this? So that shouldn't happen in real time, because time is money in software. And probably if you go in a direction and you saw a roadblock and then you had to remove all the code, it's a really waste of time. So kind of cultivate this test-driven development mindset. Read about it more. There are a lot of course, videos, a lot of material. What I'm telling you, there's a lot of material available online, so you can always go read about it. And learn tools to measure what you have coded. So this is very important for any engineer, be it software or a mechanical engineer. See the mechanic outside, he has to measure what he has. Like if he says like I've given my car for servicing and says mileage has improved, he has to test it. He has to test it in a way, and it's not like he just goes and drives the car. With the engine itself, he has to do some sort of things that to say that this engine gives this much of CC and this much of this XYZ. So as a coder, you should be able to understand how to measure what you have coded. Only then you can say that, hey, my code performs well, or I have done something to actually optimize this. So, and there are a lot of tools, and people normally ignore this in the early stages, that because they're most towards focused on getting a job. Whatever I'm telling you is not to get a job. There's a different way you have to practice. What I'm telling you is how you become a better software engineer once you are into the industry, right? So focus on them as well. And clean code, I can't stress anything anymore. And you have to learn this clean code early in your career. And I personally, as an engineer, I've seen people at 10 years and 15 years of experience who wouldn't really care about this, because they have started with that mindset. And like any other habit, as you grow, it just sticks with you, and you just become bad at more and more bad at it. So you start good, you understand what is a clean code. You should read about this, a book as well from this guy called Robert Martin. He's also called Uncle Bob. And there's great video lectures which are very fun. He is a guy who lectures in a very fun way, and should really check it out. And that talks about code. Everybody writes code. The computer understands. You've got to write the code that another human, when he reads, should understand. And there are many semantics towards it. I'm not going in depth, so please check it out. And functional programming. So this obviously is not a popular term, at least when I started as a developer, but this is getting in popularity recently, very recently. And people are trying to understand why functional programming matters. And I'm one of the evangelists for functional programming. I talk about this in various conferences. And this is like one-stop solution for all your, whatever I've said before, test-driven development, clean code, and all this nonsense. Just learn functional programming, implement pure functional programming as it says, and you are the developer. You are the best developer. Because functional programming is a set of principles which kind of It's like you're coding with handcuffs. Like it doesn't let you do certain bad things. So it's just like you're driving in a in a road where there are proper signals and everybody is going in discipline. So it has certain principles. You should really check it out. And it's again, it takes years for practice. It takes. You should start probably with a course or a book about introduction to functional programming, and a little by little, you'll understand it. But then, as you have enthusiasm towards it, you will carry it into your day-to-day coding, and then that really makes you a powerful programmer. So we talked about coding. Probably those are few important tips I could say. And this is of course not a comprehensive list, but within the time I want to give you the most. And now let's jump on to our next session where how you can make a brand out of yourself. Okay, you are great at coding, well, but then who are you? When somebody Googles your name, what should they see? You should put yourself out there. It's not the company that you work for. As an engineer, you should be really, you should love your craft and should show how much you love your craft by actually making things like which we're going to discuss now. So first thing, get engaged in the community. So blog posts are best way to reach to a lot of people. Read them first, follow great people, and then write blog posts as you learn. I personally use blog posts as my own personal notes. I mean, I whenever I have to remember something, I would write a blog post because it forces me to explain that to somebody else who is reading, which means I will actually fill all the gaps of my understandings to actually write a blog post, a good blog post, and then it works as a note for me to look back. And I read my own blog posts a lot of times, although I have not published a lot these days because of XYZ reasons. But then you should start blogging, and you should write as many as possible as you keep learning in your career. Of course, work is first. I'm not telling you should do it over the work, but on a free time, especially when you're young and unmarried, you'll have a lot of free time. So please make use of it and put them into these rather than something else. And open source collaborations are really useful whenever, of course.
Gopal, Mr. Gopal,
Yeah.
your audio is not that clear. How about others? Ram or Uma is here. Dr. Uma Maheshwari.
Ma'am?
His audio is clear to you, Ram?
Ma'am.
Or any student? Harshna?
It's clear.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear, ma'am.
Ma'am, it's clear for me, ma'am.
Oh, it's clear, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gopal. Please proceed. Please proceed.
No problem. Yeah. Sure. And open source collaborations are something which give you real-time experience without actually working for an organization, which is what, of course, every student wants or every budding developer wants. And open source collaborations are where you learn from others across the globe. And they take a lot of time, of course. You should balance how much you're doing and how much you're actually working. Whatever I'm saying, you shouldn't put anything above your work. You should finish your work first with complete, you should deliver your responsibilities, and only in your free time, when you want to hone yourself and do something more than what your work says, you got to follow all this. And you pick a repository, a simple repository. There's so many popular repositories, and of course, I totally agree. It's a lot of confusion where to start from. And I personally don't have an answer myself. I had to search and find a good repository where I actually understand when there is a community which responds to you about certain doubts or questions that you have. And then you pick with small, simple tasks like probably improving the documentation. That's where you can start from. And then slowly picking up small little bugs, delivering them. And believe me, the moment your first bug fix get merged into open source collaborations, open repository, which is being used by a lot of people, the happiness that you get is like immense. So you should really start understanding others' code and start contributing to certain open source projects. And we're going to talk a little towards the end because there are certain questions that were asked about them. We're going to talk about them as well. And Slack channels and Discord channels. You might have heard about the Slack application, and Kotlin is one which has a vibrant community on Slack. You ask any dumb question, there are people who can answer that, and a lot of people who keep pumping their knowledge into it. And if you just go across this messages or feeds or discussions, you got a lot of knowledge. So get into them. Just keep on being active. You also help somebody once you get some expertise. And these are certain things. And we are lucky as software developers. We have a lot of virtual ways to connect. And follow people. This is something I learned pretty late. You always learn things faster when you follow people who have already done that before and has been doing for years. And how do you follow people apart from people that you know around your company or the team? Twitter is a place where I found there's a lot of energy towards development, lot of developers. And be careful, like when you get into Twitter, you got to like the proper things and see proper. If you are following a lot of celebrities, all you get is those celebrity gossips. So if required, you kind of maintain two accounts, one for tech Twitter and one for the entertainment one. So as you get attracted towards the technology, the Twitter algorithm gives you more and more of your kind and your interest. So that's wherein if you follow a lot of people, get a great information, and just by scrolling while you're having coffee or something, you would find something really useful. And this has changed me, changed my decisions, or given me sudden, what you call turning points. Just while I was casually just going through Twitter. So, and GitHub is another one where you should follow developers, and you would get a feed wherein the projects those developers are working on. And again, I'm telling you, follow people, follow the journey. If you see somebody who is closer to you, who is doing something that you're also enthusiastic about, don't just leave him, because he might have already crossed a lot of things, and you can sort of learn all those years from him for free. So don't leave him. And especially if he's closer to your community. For example, if he's from your city or from your state or from your country, he might have gone through the same juggle that you might have gone through the same education system. And if he's doing something there and something out great, and if you want to do it, he would be the easiest person, because he would have more context with in what ways that he has achieved what he has done. And of course, don't restrict yourself to that. The people across the globe you should follow. And the Medium app is one more where you can follow bloggers, and you should read about their blog posts. And Feedly is something I discovered recently, where I used to subscribe to each and every blog and used to get a lot of emails which I never read. Feedly is something where you can unsubscribe from your emails first of all, and Feedly is wherein you can add those websites, and when a new blog post comes in that, you kind of get a notification. Just go ahead, check it out. You'll know about it. So this is how you sort of get around and understand what's going on around. And Tech Talks is something they're very useful. First of all, Tech Talks are not tutorials. They wouldn't. The mission of Tech Talk is not to teach you something, but to express an idea or express a personal journey or something that a decision that a team has made, so which kind of change their product. And this is very valuable, a lot more valuable than any tutorial or anything that teaches you, because this is something that happens in reality. And always follow great speakers around the world, and from a country and a state itself, a lot of great speakers. And you should deliver them as well. At one point, you want to speak about something, and if it suits you, you should really go on the stage and deliver. And as you deliver, you keep thinking about new things that you want to talk about, and it's a good spiral that starts, and you keep learning things, you keep talking about them. There's another way to express, like blogging. So great. But apart from all this, don't get caught up in a filmy tech. I was there. Like when you read about all this great stuff, you feel like everybody is doing something cutting edge, something. What I mean is they're doing great. A lot of new technologies are being implemented in real time, but then they don't happen in real time. like in every job or every company, you sort of have to use something that is not cutting edge, not today's, something 5 years ago or 2 years ago. Even if you do something cutting edge today, it's gonna get older after a few years. So you might not use it in real time, but how you have to use whatever new things that you learned is to make difference at your work. Learn it, come back and see how you can put it there and improve this. Rather than don't kind of get into this complaining mode that my company is using some old technology and things are everywhere are changing and my company is not changing. It doesn't happen anywhere. I believe we have changed a lot of companies and I know this. So don't get caught up in something, hey, this is happening this way. Just like as we see in films, it doesn't happen in real life. And make a portfolio for yourself with all keeping all these things, learning all these things, and you should actually portray them in one good platform. And you should prepare a blog post, and it's very easy these days. There are GitHub pages. There is something called Netlify, which also gives you free hosting. My personal blog is freely hosted on Netlify, so you don't have to pay a penny for that. And even preparing coding, even if you're not a front-end developer, there are great frameworks like Gatsby, which you should go and check it out. It's pretty simple, but then you probably need a little knowledge on Reactive and all. But it's not so difficult because there are made out templates wherein you just have to change your name, change your blog post and all that, and then just get started. So yeah, take your time. It's not a rush, but then once you have things, you should probably start putting them in your portfolio, and that happens to be a resume rather than actual resume. And the interviews. So unfortunately, even today, job interviews rely on resumes. Even after having so many things that you look at, they still rely on resumes and scanning the keywords in them. That's very unfortunate. I hope that changes in near future. But then you got to have a strong resume, and you got to put all your work, put your GitHub links there, and talk about, of course, the keywords are important for you to get filtered into actual companies. And there's altogether a different subject which you can check it out later, how to write a resume. But then have a strong resume. Having a strong resume helps you to get a lot of calls, interview calls. And DS Algo is no secret and no shortcut. You have to not cram them, but then you got to work hard to actually understand and get your brain to solve those problems. Even after this 10 years of experience, almost 9.5 years of experience, I can't sort of solve it right away if you give me an algo problem, because I don't use it every day. I always promise myself that I should practice every day, but I don't get enough time. But if you have time early in the stage of your career, you should invest into DS Algo. Because DS Algo is one thing, wherever you go, it will be asked. And if you're good at this and not good at something else, it's totally fine. Nobody cares. If you're good at this, people just pick you. And even companies like Google, even for experienced developers, they would ask these questions even today. Because it's all about how you solve a problem. Technology just changes company to company, and year by year it changes. There is nothing that companies are confused how to evaluate a candidate. The only way they can evaluate is based on DS Algo and your problem-solving skills. And this is, if you want to crack interviews, start with DS Algo. There is no secret. Everything, and best part is a lot of information is available for free in DS Algo. You just have to get them into your brain, which is very difficult, of course. So you have to practice.
So Gopal, sorry to interrupt you. DS and algorithm, you are telling it's very important. That has
Correct.
been for a while, starting I think 20, 30 years before, when the HR people come, they will start with the data structures and algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of data structures you are aware of, and some simple questions. Can you just throw some light on DS? You are telling that is very important even now, as
Yeah.
HR. Any HR will be asking the fundamental questions, data
Correct.
structures and algorithms. Can you just throw one or two questions here, the interview questions? Of course, there is no secret or shortcuts here.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the students to know, from your experience,
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
sure. So, preparing DS Algo, like we will be asked questions like, hey, design the shortest path between two cities. So, which happens to be a graph algorithm. or even if you that would be a bigger problem. Even in your stage, probably you'll be asked, "Hey, reverse a string." Uh, Reverse a string by not reversing words. So some problems like that, wherein you got to have command on how you write a bug-free code, and then how you loop through your string and all that. There's so many interview questions. I am not getting at the top of my mind. Some good questions that
It's
a
okay.
student get asked. Yeah.
It's
If
okay.
you
These two
go to
questions are just an eye opener. These two
yeah, if you
questions
go,
are eye opener.
great, great, yeah. If you go to Lead Code or Hacker Rank, there were questions about them as well. I reserved to answer there, but I can talk here as
Okay.
well. They Lead Code and Hacker Rank are the places that you need to. You shouldn't open Facebook when you're free. You should open Lead Code, and that's a vibrant community as well. People are smart people, and they also talk in a funny way. And Lead Code is something you should live, and you should use that to relax yourself. It's like a sport. So again, if you go into competitive programming, I personally haven't done competitive programming, but then people use it, do it as a game. It's really fun. So tune your brain that it's fun and it really helps you. And this instant gratification. Imagine in a job you wouldn't get it on a day-to-day basis, like what they call dopamine or something. Like when you get a like on your post, you get a sort of hormone in your brain is what to say. And DS always something which is close to it. You sort of spend an hour or two, and then you instantly get your code running, and you kind of get a satisfaction. You wouldn't get that in your day-to-day job, believe me. It takes probably 2 weeks for you to complete a task, and then people test it, and then there's meetings and all that, and just don't get it. Get that the kick that you want, and if you want that in your life, you can go and practice DS Algo, and invest any investment that you do on DS Algo is like investing on gold. It's like it keeps rising, it never falls. So if you have free time and you don't know what to learn, just invest on DS Algo. That's advice I give you. And design patterns is again very important. DS Algo gives you one sort of skill, but then it doesn't fill you this gap of understanding design patterns. When I say design patterns, it's about how you put your various components in a software. So they're the people who already have done a lot of things, and they have kind of came up with certain patterns. Hey, you should do it this way. If you do it the other way, you will actually end up in problems. They're anti-patterns and they're patterns. And Head First Design Patterns book is one stop that you should start with. It's very fun. So many with a lot of diagrams and such. I really enjoyed reading that book as a junior developer. You should start with it. You feel like you're going through a TV show. So yeah, start with it, understand early in your career so that when you actually talk about design patterns as a junior developer, people really value you because it's a senior thing, but it's, believe me, you don't have to be a senior. It's so much fun to understand them right away and start with them. And always sell yourself as a problem solver. Don't sell yourself that I'm a Java developer or a Kotlin developer or I know XYZ framework. It doesn't matter because every company changes. And as I said, it just with time things get old and new things come up. You have to be a problem solver. Take the problem, understand the requirements, cut them, break the problems, and then I also tell you how to learn about where we talk about how you should break the problems, understand abstractions. So let's get into how to learn. And as we discussed already, software career is something you have to constantly learn throughout your life. There's no option for you. So, but then again, like I said, it's not like your exams wherein you make notes and you kind of close them and sell them from secondhand or a paper guide because you don't need them anymore. You got to carry your notes for years together. And how do you do that? It's not possible to write it on a notepad. I used to have notebooks. I used to carry them everywhere. Once I lost them in a train, and everything is gone. I had to, that is a great loss. Always write in cloud. Like there are a lot of platforms these days. So many free tools. I'll talk about that. So. First of all, you got to start with asking question why rather than what it is. You'll always understand normally it's a natural behavior to start with what it is. So instead, for example, you can ask what is a keyboard? A keyboard is something you have A, B, C, D, and then you can type. But then you should ask question, why is a keyboard there? Why do you need a keyboard? You need a keyboard because you got to type things. So that's the answer that you get. And that's all you need. You don't have to understand. I mean, you have to understand what it is, but the actual fundamental keeps the same. Keyboards might change. You will get new touchpads, and you will get something else to tomorrow. But why is something which stays there, and that's what you got to grab, and then take it to something else. Let us say tomorrow you saw a similar framework solving the same problem. So then you now that you why is with you, you know why this is done in this way. If you're caught up in what, everything feels new. Everything you just sort of it feels overwhelming to learn a lot of things which keep happening, and you got to be very selective as well. You shouldn't like, kind of run around and understand a lot of things. But when it comes to why, the kind of you can count them in fingers. The not many concepts that these frameworks are solving. All of them in the end solve same problem. So always think like your fundamentals should be the ones that you need to memorize or you need to note down, and then probably learn this today. Okay, tomorrow it is obsolete. Take it out. You haven't lost anything. Your why and fundamentals are there with you. You use the same to learn something else. It's pretty fast again, and understand the patterns and semantics. And this happens everywhere. Like me, at least, I started with Android development, and I did also some web development. Went into backend development. But in the end, I see a lot of patterns everywhere. Everywhere, it's the same. They just change the terms because the application of them is different. Backend is used for something else. Web is used for something else. So that's the difference. But how you code, how you solve a problem in certain ways, same. Always learn that semantics, learn those patterns, not the actual what's. And always divide and conquer. Like when you see a big chunk of thing that you need to learn, you sort of have to understand the abstractions first. Like go from top to bottom. What is what, and then you understand how they are integrated, and then go in depth rather than starting with the details and really getting lost and overwhelmed. There's also one course in Coursera I recommend, learning how to learn, the same title, which I even recently watched, which is very informative. We should go and watch it. And as at least as an early learners, that sort of changes the way you think. And always my preference is to learn from a tutorial or a good book, because somebody, again, the same pattern that I taught before, somebody might have already tried to collate all the information and put that in a nice book for you. So you should start with that rather than you also starting searching for everything. So a good book is a great starter, or a tutorial is well and good. I mean, better than a book. I mean, they both have caveats, but a tutorial also gives you a hands-on, shows you something hands-on. So like there are LinkedIn Learning and then Pluralsight. They're paid, of course, but then as GitHub students, I think you get it for free for a little while. You can check it out. And always be reactive and learning and this is applicable for things that you don't use daily, because there are a lot of things to learn outside. It just gets overwhelming, and the changes in software are 5x compared to anything else. Like for example, civil engineering, let us say if that changes in X per year, software changes 5 to 10x per year. So it's really difficult to catch up with everything. Always be reactive, understand how much only that you require, and then if you don't use it every day, and master one thing. But other things is have a reactive learning, and always have an application-oriented learning. And when you learn something, think about how can I apply that into something that I know already. And it's a what you call chicken egg problem. You got to know, unless you know something, you can't know whether to apply or not. So you got to balance that. There is no one answer for it. I mean, if there is one answer, people have done it already. So you got to learn, and then only understand. You will know that, oh, okay, I learned this and I can apply it there. So something like that. And yeah, don't fall into pseudo-competence. Knowing more things doesn't make you a good engineer. Knowing more things doesn't even make you, probably in other fields, knowing more makes you good. But then in software, or probably in application-oriented industries, knowing more doesn't make you. You shouldn't memorize more. How you innovate is you understand, you connect things, and then you innovate things. You build things. You wouldn't build by having more knowledge or reading more books. So always be careful before picking up a book. Is this worth my time? Is this aligning to my goals? And is it adding up to anything that I already know? So, and like I said, it's again a chicken egg problem. You wouldn't know unless you know, but you got to carefully manage, and you would get good at it as you start. But as a starter, don't be too picky. This is the time where you should experiment and understand what you actually like, what is close to your heart. I was a EC student, electronics and communication student. I used to believe I have to get into core job, core is my passion and all that. I got a job, but then I couldn't go there. I had to end up in software. But then now I'm realizing probably I'll be a very bad engineer because my wife works in Qualcomm as a core developer, and I can never really do that. So unless I experimented, I wouldn't know that actually that I like this field more than the core field. So, and it also is probably you change as a person. So keep an eye. Always have a balance between experimenting as well as choosing your niche. So don't get again caught up in that wild of going everywhere, learning everything. At the same time, don't fall short of experimentation. So, and making notes again, I said you should make notes, but there are great ways that at least I'm a avid note taker. I love using a lot of apps for note taking, and these are few that I felt which are free. And the note taking patterns are also emerging these days, rather than you have a notebook and you have like a folder, you have notes and certain things. Nowadays, people are using something like a mesh of notes. For example, in your brain, the way your information gets stored is like a mesh. It's like a graph. You connect things, various things, but then when you actually write notes, you write in notebooks, which is totally in a different way. But these apps kind of encourage you to write notes in a way which is like a mesh. So always remember, a notes is something you got to understand. It's not about memorizing. You got to know at what context are you going to get it. Context are you going to remind yourself about that particular note? What is the context? That's something you ought to have a pointer towards. So just like pointers that you might have heard, learned about in C++, in C. So you got to have proper pointers towards what you've learned. So otherwise, if the indexing is missing, although it resides somewhere in your hard disk, you can never access it. So go and explore these apps. They are very interesting. And there's a note-taking pattern that I recently learned called Zettelkasten. He's a German scientist, and all he says is the concept of Zettelkasten. You should go check it out, the YouTube videos on how to do it. But the gist of it, again, the why part of it is you break the things that you learned. As like, for example, you learned about a car, and then you break things you learned about tires. You make that as a different node, and you learned about an engine, and you learned about something else. Have them as separate, and then when you learn about something else like a tractor, you pick this engine part or a wheel part or something, and then you sort of connect these nodes and see the patterns. So it's about breaking the idea, breaking your learning into small little pieces, connecting those wherever necessary, and then you build something else, which is an amalgam of car and a tractor. So that's how you innovate. And then you come up with something totally different. So this way of note taking encourages that. I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a silver bullet, but then go explore it. If it suits you, follow that. And finally, if you want to be a more paid developer, high paid developer, and what kind of developers are high paid? I mean, I have seen software industries, people get fat salaries. I mean, you can't imagine. There are billionaires who normally people doesn't become a billionaire just by doing a job, but in software industry it's possible. So, which is sort of really awesome. But then, how do you get there? And even I'm not there yet. But this is what I learned from my seniors and looking at how people grow in various teams. So first of all, this is fundamental. Be a team player. So this is you see this difference when you actually enter into a job from being a student. You got to work in shared code bases, so which is very tricky because when you sit and when you code for yourself, nobody asks you a question. So, but when you have to collaborate on one common thing, it's just like the same problems that you get in your apartments or flats, the same problems that you see in shared code bases as well. People keep complaining, people have problems, you need to satisfy people to get your code into. And then there are a lot of things. And you also need to empower certain juniors as you grow. They might make mistakes, you got to kind of correct them, improve. You got to also get good at reading others' code rather than writing. You spend a lot of time reading others' code rather than writing your own code. And at one point, we'll stop writing code. Coding is no more necessary. And coders are not the one who actually get paid. Coders are like the low-level junior developers who does it. As you grow up, your coding decreases, and these kind of skills is what matters. So, and you got to police your code, shared code. Be a police for your shared code base and never let bad code in. Always review code and don't be enemy for the ones. I mean, if you don't like somebody's code, don't be like his enemy. Be his supporter, be his ally. Make him do well, and he'll support you. You need support when people go up, not by somebody they are pulling him up, but the ones who are under him are lifting him up. That's how you go up. So the moment the junior developer, gets confidence on you, he sort of gives nice feedback to your manager, and then he brings you up. By the way, so and this is the right way to grow rather than you pointing some mistakes in him, and it doesn't really go that well. I mean, he'll lose confidence, and he'll just go out of the company, pick another job. He'll just lose one good developer. So. Still strategize and focus. And these are three key things that any senior level developer or manager would need. In the end, like I said, coding is nothing. You got to sell your ideas. You got to start initiatives. So all the apps and everything that you see might have initiated by one person. Even the Google Meet that we're using would have been initiated by one person. So you got to bring in initiatives. And if you have seen the recent movie Surarai Potru or Akasam Hadura in Telugu, you see that this guy had to connect a lot of dots to actually get that plane to land. So you need similar strategy. You will get a lot of roadblocks. You got to bring in a lot of people and get their agreement, and then tweak things and a lot of things. So that's where, if you do that, you get paid more. And strategize. So software is more about estimating. This is just like any other project outside. You got to see how much time it takes. You got to give estimates, and you got to also and best solution is not always right. Like you might know a solution which is super good, but it might take more time. But you sort of need to finish it fast. So you take where you short is also important. Take proper shortcuts and understand trade-offs. Okay, I know this is best solution, but I need it now because so I will go with this solution. I know this is best solution. Probably I never need it because my app wouldn't need so many users or this many requirements. So that is something you got to learn, and this is something which can't be taught. You have to. You may already have it from your household, but even if you don't don't worry. You can cultivate them through practice and understanding and all that. Looking at people little by little. Always be conscious and see whether you're going in the track or not. And focus. As your focus increases, you get paid more and more for your attention. 1 hour of your time costs more as you kind of focus better as you grow up. So in the meetings or any collaboration, you just have to focus, ask questions, even if they're simple questions. Always get engaged in a meeting. Don't be in the backbench, not listening to things. And I was a backbencher. I never listened to my lectures properly, and then I understood how much that cost me. I mean, focusing is something. It's vital. So, and focusingly listening a lecture or listening a meeting is so difficult without getting distracted, and that sort of makes you a great manager or a senior guy who sort of can bring changes. Finally, don't forget to exercise every day. This is a great tip, and no one tells you. Everybody asks you how you eaten today, but no one asks you how you exercised today. Exercise is vital. If you want to be a great developer, be serious on yourself. Take yourself seriously. Have good diet. Have exercise every day. Sleep well, and don't sort of burn your night oil, because software, it's very common. People kind of wake up in late at nights and do work, but don't do that. As a young person, doesn't make any difference, but as you grow old, it sort of gets on you, and it's really not good. So have fun as well, and have a hobby, have fun. Don't forget, I mean, don't take your job so seriously. And if you don't have a great personal life, it's totally not worth. So as a person who's a family man now, who's married, I know a lot. I know the value of that you should give your family, the time they should give, and don't kind of get caught up with all this noise. Thank you so much. I'm done with the session. I can start with questions that I was given, or you guys can ask me questions, whichever way you feel good.
Probably whatever the questions that has we have consolidated, you can just ask a few questions. Harshana, you want to ask first?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma.
So,
Please go
so
ahead.
you were talking about web. You'll give us some details about web. So,
Uh-huh. So web development, of course. What sort of information are you looking for on web development? Hello.
how to host our websites or like,
Oh yeah. Oh, if it's about hosting, um, I'll give you a few terms that you should go and understand about. Obviously, we can't discuss it now, but then I'm putting that in chat. Gatsby, uh, you can Google about them and you'll right away get it. Gatsby is a framework that React.js uses React.js. React.js is a popular framework in web, if you have already know it. And this guy uses that framework. And I use Gatsby for my website if you have gone to my website. And you can go about it. This is now using this, you will have a website, like you will have a website that runs on your system. But then you got to put it somewhere which is hosting so that everybody else on the web can access it, which you can use either Github-Pages is for hosting or Netlify. These are two hosting companies which kind of give you hosting for free. And for domain, if you want a free domain, this all I forgot the name. Freenom gives you a free domain name. So what happens in GitHub and Pages? You'll get a github.io domain or a netlify.app domain, which kind of doesn't look good. But if you want your own custom domain, like I have got overfullstack.js, you can use this. So start with it, a lot of information that you should be able to understand, and then you can host your own website with that.
and can you recommend one of the best languages for backend, like web for web?
Web backend is what you're saying, or actual backend, server backend?
Web backend.
I think the popular one, the JavaScript, but then JavaScript is very wild, it's very broad that you kind of get lost in details. So first you can start with JavaScript and then once you understand the semantics, understand what it is, you'll appreciate learning TypeScript, which is the Microsoft technology, which gives you type-safe way of developing. JavaScript is a dynamic language wherein because it has problems and you will see how the problems are solved. Once you understand the problems, you will see how they are solved in TypeScript. And then, as I said, Kotlin is also getting into multi-platform, but I personally have not done any Kotlin development in web. And there is no one best language. Every language has problems, and probably modern languages as they come keep solving those.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Is my screen still showing up, or have I stopped sharing?
You're
Oh,
still
oh yeah,
sharing.
presenting. I'm presenting. Okay, yeah. So people asked about GitHub. I can talk about GitHub. This is my personal GitHub. And as I've told, I follow these developers, so I see their feed in here. So I see, sometimes I see some awesome projects that they're working on. I go there and I see about it. So what exactly is GitHub again? If you ask about the fundamental, it's a collaboration tool wherein it's a common platform wherein multiple developers can write code and push it. So when you have that, obviously you need some rules and some way of doing it. You can't straight away write and put your code there, right? So that's where GitHub facilitates. So Git and GitHub are not same. Git is something which is a version control. Simply put, you write certain lines of code, you commit it, which means you sort of cemented it, saying this is this is version 1, and then you improve on it, and again you commit, that's a second version. So you kind of pile up these versions. So that's how Git is useful. And GitHub is just a cloud way of doing the same. uh, not a Git is something you do it personally in your own system, and GitHub is something that exists somewhere in central system, and then people kind of commit and push into it. So let's say you are working on a feature, and let us say you got 1, 2, 3 commits, and then you want to push these commits into the central code base that everyone is working on. Understood? So for that, you write something called a pull request. I'll probably just walk away. This is my lab. So if you go to pull request is like requesting somebody, hey, please pull my code into the repository. So when there is a concept called branches. You should learn Git, of course, and it's not really intimidating. So branches, again, nothing. It's very simple. Look, everybody is going in master branch. Everybody has this single source of truth, and this branch is what the application is running. Let's say imagine a website is running, and then you want to enhance, you want to work on a feature. So you straight away don't work on it, right? Because users are seeing your blog. As you're developing, it needs to be tested and all that. So you sort of develop in a branch. You take a copy of it. It's not a copy, but I'm just for the sake of understanding, copy of it, work on your own, and then once you're done, you feel confident, you want to merge it into the master, right? So for that, you raise a pull request. You ask the admin of the repository to say, hey, I have finished my feature, please, I'm requesting you to pull my code into it. And that's where pull request comes in. And there are various nuances when it comes to GitHub, but the why part, again, like I said, it's simple. It's just a common way that everybody collaborate, and we have certain rules for that. And there's forking as well, which you sort of might get confused. So this is my repository, right? You can't make branches out of it because it's mine. You don't have permission to do. So what will you do? You fork there's a fork option because there's mine. I don't see this. So if you go to this URL, you would have this active. So what is forking? Forking is same. You take it into your own GitHub account. You take my entire code into your GitHub account, and then you start a branch. You do whatever you want, and then you write a pull request and asking me, hey, I have improved XYZ of your website. If you're interested, review it and merge into your own branch. So that is forking. So these small little nuances, you probably on a day-to-day life wouldn't even use 5 to 6 terminologies. Just kind of get used to it. If you Google about it, you'll understand. So that's all about GitHub. There's nothing fancy or nothing really difficult to understand. Just like your Facebook, as you understand, you see various developers doing. You do certain things, and this is a great way to put out your work. On your resumes, especially as new grads, you might not have worked on an internship or something. You should, if you're interested in something, develop something, put it out there, and it's open to everybody. Share that link or put it on your website. So that's how you sort of get it. These are the repositories I forked. So if you see, these are not mine. So I've copied them and copied the repository. I will do certain changes and ask them to pull it into the repository. So that is what GitHub is. I hope answer your question.
Is it possible for you to give a small demo of this GitHub?
Okay. So I'll start with this probably. Okay. I'll start with an ID, or where should I start with? I have a DS Algo repo. I'll start with that. So, and Git, by the way, can be accessed through command line, which is if you're using Windows, it's PowerShell, or if you're using Mac, you will have something called terminal. So this is one way of interacting with Git, wherein you have commands which you need to type and then interact. Other ways, a lot of IDEs come with built-in integrations. So I'm using VS Code. So this is my, let us say, all my problems I've solved till today. And hope I have some changes. Give it some time. It's initializing. So this is the source control tab. So see, I have done until like certain point I have committed. Now I made some changes. I made certain changes. If you go here, you would see the difference from this was my previous version and this is my current version. So I made these changes for my files. Now this is my personal repository. Imagine for the sake of this, this is a shared repository that 2-3 people are working on it. Now I can't try to push it, right? And I can't. If you see the branch information here, where is it? Yeah. So this is on master. So master branch is something which is, like I said, is the master of all the branches on which the production code actually runs. So what I need to do is I need to prepare a new branch of my own. So I will name it Gopal new branch. Okay. Okay, something happened. I don't know. I'll use the. So this is how I would create a branch from command line. You can master command line as well, and you can use. You should also know UI. See, new branch is created. And if you ask me which is better, I use both, and wherever necessary. This is more convenient, but little slower. So now I made a branch, and I have all these changes. There is staging wherein you sort of as you finish things you stage them. Now as you learn Git, you'll understand what is staging. So staging is just a middleware before committing, although nobody actually uses it. And you write a commit. I would say some meaningful commit, not like this, and then you commit. So all are committed. Now what happens is you see the history. So these are the history of commits that I've made throughout as I've worked on this repository. Now you understand why a commit is made, obviously, right? Because you want to understand what changed. For example, something broke in this current, let us say, iteration. You should know that this is working, and there is a problem in this commit, so that you can revert back or you can travel back in time. Now this is there in my system. It's still not it's published. So what I do is I have to push it. So pushing is, again, you're pushing it to the server. So GitHub will be running on a server, right? A central server. So now you're pushing from your local system to your server. So now that because I'm using the IDE, it also tells me that there is no upstream branch because we just created this new branch locally, right? The server does not have that branch. So would you like to publish the branch? I say, okay. Now what it does is it creates a remote branch. When I say remote branch, the one which is on the server, a branch will be created, which will be tracked with this, which is like, you can think of it as a reference. So as you commit, as you push, it goes to the report branch which is there in the GitHub server. Now let's go here, and this is my DS algo. So as you enter into this UI, it itself shows compare and pull request. Now that I have a branch, I made a branch. I should actually ask the admin of this DS algo to pull that into his branch, master branch, so that everybody else can see it. So I raise a pull request, Jan commit, and this will have all the differences. You can have side-by-side view or whatever, you can twiddle with it. It just shows you what changed from then and here. And then you write a meaningful explanation of what changed. And then you create add reviewers first of all. I mean, if because this is my own repository, I don't have, but if it's shared across multiple people, you can go and request people to review your code and create a pull request. So once you create pull request, all the reviewers will get a notification that this guy wants to pull his code into his. So they can go to pull request tab. And see there's a pull request, and you can go there, review it. And then as somebody from outside, I wouldn't have merge permission, so I can't merge it. Let's say I'm now the admin. I'm going in here and then checking what all changed. Everything looked fine. If I have some concern, I would add a comment here. So I'll write a comment, and the person who who wrote the actual code comes in and comments something else. And in the end, we have to have all the comments resolved. And just go here and merge the pull request and confirm merge, which means now my code gets into master branch. Okay, now as a person who is working, so this would have been done by all, let's say 2-3 people. Some of your friends who are working on the repository also created branch of their own, does something, and everybody checks into master. Now, how can you update yourself? So you should switch to master. Again, your local master points to the remote master, which is again just the reference point. And switch to branch. Now I'm on master. Now, because now none of my new branch changes will be here because I did not pull master. What I do is I go here, I pull. When I pull, I'm getting all the changes that are committed into the central master so that I am up to date. And then I again work from there. So, and you should do it regularly. Otherwise, you sort of get outdated and it becomes difficult to merge. You will get merge conflicts. So now I am able to pull things, and there are concepts like rebase, merging, and all, which are a little advanced. We should go about and learning them. So you'll get merge conflicts obviously. Right? For example, you and your friend worked on the same file, and you changed something, your friend changed something. Imagine your friend merged into master first, and by the time you want to merge it, there's conflict. You have to resolve that conflict. Who is right? Either you or your friend. Both can't be right? So if you change, so somebody has to come in, or you yourself might be knowing that you're fixing something. So you merge, and then you resolve the merge conflicts and then merge it. So it takes a little more time, probably it takes another session to understand Git, but there are a lot of tutorials out there. Git is again open source, so it's easy to learn. I hope this demo helped. Let me know if you want to see something else.
Yes, it is okay, sir. Vishnu, he has raised his hand. Vishnu, can you ask your question?
Sir, hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
As you have said about connecting dots, from a kid I've been learning C. The way I found C was a lot structured, a lot constrained, where you have to follow through certain strict rules. But speaking of your things as connecting dots, I also haven't failed to experiment it in many manners as possible. Then I went to C++, and then it was not much of a flexible as you call it, but still there was objects and pointers and even typecast them. And speaking of experimenting, I went through Blender and a lot of other softwares where I couldn't connect this lot of dots, as you say, from what you call programming. Then later, the part of the abstraction began to grow. The way we work was a lot different, sir. First of all, we worked in a very low level, like you call C. C is more, a lot to the basic of computer, right? It's a lot microprocessor oriented. We can understand basically what's happening inside, almost, we can say, into the hardware level. Like C is just two levels abstracted from kernel, right? So what I don't understand is how abstract is that you work? I mean, now I am working in Unreal Engine and stuff where I use a lot of C++ in a very abstract way. I mean, who does code right now, like typing every single each line, creating constructor, creating copy constructor? Never do that. You just drag a blueprint out of nowhere and connect them into nodes. That's it. That's what we do. Now I can really understand. For example, you said JavaScript. JavaScript's a very dynamic programming. If you know C++ and you learn straight away go to JavaScript, then you will find programming a lot easier to you. I mean, a lot flexible. A variable doesn't need a data type. For example, shallow copying is done very easy. There's no need of a class. So what I'm asking is how abstract is your level and how abstract is to be for a student to be a perfect one. I mean, aptitude is a very important aspect of a programmer. That means you are working Microsoft or whatever it is. I don't care, but still, how important is aptitude and flexibility in programming aspect?
So, if I understand the question right, you're asking about what is the abstraction level I work at, and should you work at depth, or it's okay to work
Yeah,
in
close to
abstract level?
close to
Yeah.
six.
So, me as a backend developer, I of course work on the highest abstraction possible, like where you actually code and the next level is getting shipped. I normally wouldn't worry about what happens underneath in the server or how the server interacts with the system, kernel, etc. Um, that said, there are problems everywhere that you need to solve both at kernel level as well as abstract layer level. So. Uh, if I understand your question right, I hope that answered the question wherein you are asking me at what level I'm working on.
Yeah, the
And
actual
you
question.
also, yeah. Can you repeat the other question?
Yeah, actually, what I wanted to ask is, after learning, what do you say, engineering course, maybe you learn a couple of languages and a lot of other sideway courses. But
Oh,
is it anywhere related to your job? I mean, how useful is
okay.
that in your abstraction level?
Okay, so one way, I mean, if you're asking, are you like if you learn, should you go from the lowest abstraction level to the highest abstraction level? Uh, Probably, if that is the question, no, it doesn't matter. You can start at the highest abstraction level. There's so many things. Let me tell you, I probably think there is no single human alive today who doesn't know from top to bottom. Nobody knows it. People probably understand the integration and other things, but you don't have to learn all of those. And how I make my learning suitable to my day-to-day job is, again, like I said, it's a very tricky question. Nobody knows the answer. Just like nobody knows how to make a super hit film. If people know it, if people only will take super hit films, right? So
So,
nobody knows it. Yeah.
what makes you fit really, you think? I mean, I also learn a couple of languages. Is it your aptitude that differs from a normal? There are people out there, many everywhere. People are learning coding everywhere. That's what I'm asking about. What do you
Okay.
need to actually develop? The aptitude
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
lot of learning?
Yeah, if you ask me personally, I feel again it's my feeling that I am a little creative when it comes to innovating things. I see things in a different way compared to others. Again, I'm not really smart as many other people that I see in my teams who can grasp things easily. But I feel I'm persistent. Unless I understand, I keep following, I keep making notes, and I personally have a habit of getting confused so easily. Because I have that habit, I make clear notes so that I can explain them to others. So I hope those qualities sort of help me. And then the other qualities I need to hone as well. But then you can also as well introspect what is the strength you have got. Not everybody has all the strengths, and if you have all the strengths, great. But then even if you don't, use your weaknesses as strengths as well. Like just like the confusing problem that I have, I sort of use that as a strength and help that helps me to explain properly to others. So I pre-prepare before meeting. I can't dynamically kind of sort of present something or prepare without any preparation. I make my practice, I prepare, and then when I deliver, I do it clearly. So yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. Praneeth, do you have a question? You have raised your hand. Yes, good. And one more question in the chat box. What are the trending softwares for the project work, for doing the projects?
Depends on where, in which domain you want to have the project on. Can you elaborate more on that?
Trending softwares for project work. The students, the undergraduate students and postgraduate students, they are going to do their projects in the
Uh,
final semester.
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Something.
it's a broad question, right? Because there are
Yes.
projects can be done in many streams.
Yes.
So if you say one single domain, if I know about it, I can tell you. If you like looking at doing
Yes.
something
That's
on the
all.
cloud, like there are AWS, there is Azure, which is coming. But cloud is nothing really. It's again, when you ask why part, why is a cloud? Cloud is just like share auto. So if you host your own server, imagine if you are in India, people will be active in the morning, but at the night, people don't really use your server. But you got to pay for your hosting, right? So which is not effective. Imagine your friend has come, your friend is in US and he would want to share with you, and in the night he would his server would be active, and morning your server would be active, and your costs are halved. Same concept is applied in cloud. So you share certain things. When it's not active, it shouldn't pay for it. So those cloud guys, they what they do is they just smartly manage the load from one server to other server. In the end, you all will be using one machine. So that's where in cloud is just a cost-effective solution, nothing so fancy. So always look at things this way. Why part is so simple, right? Isn't it? Now ask yourself, do I need to do something on the cloud? If you're building something, do I need a cloud? Or if you just want, for the sake of experience, want to build something, sure. I mean, you can learn about it. Um, there are, like I said, AWS is the most popular without any doubt, and Azure and for learning, like I said, already recommended start with a book or a tutorial. Don't start with Google or Wikipedia. For sure, not Wikipedia. So yeah,
So can you answer all the questions, whatever the students have sent it
just
at the
sure,
consolidation
sure.
of the time?
Yeah. So I talked about GitHub, I talked about cloud now, and some asked about visual effects, cybersecurity, and data science. I'm sorry, I don't have expertise there, so I can't comment about that. And somebody asked about DevOps, and this is a good question. I wanted to use this question to answer this. These days, unlike 10 years ago, there are no testing teams and development teams are separate. These days, a person, engineer, people are referring to a person as an engineer rather than a developer, a tester, or somebody who is into operations. So you got to do everything. So DevOps emerged in that way. So operations, in the sense, what it means is like you are developing code, but where does this code? How is this code shipped to the production? How is this running in the production? And all that should be taken care. You as a developer can't do that normally because you are focused on coding. But these days, that distinction is going away. So you as a developer need to know everything, almost something of everything. So because the waterfall model is gone. So it's not like you develop something for 1 week and then suddenly the tester comes and start testing. You iteratively develop while you're developing. The same person in a team who was developing last week might be working on how to test it. He might be writing test cases. By the time you finish, he'll be ready with test cases, and you both collaborate and do something. And while you both are doing something, somebody else might be working on how they should be improving the sort of current pipeline to how you should put your code into production, etc. That guy might be last week doing testing. So everybody has to do everything else. And DevOps is a recent emergence. They just, it's a fancy name to call whatever I just said. And and like I said, yeah, you have to know something of everything these days. There is no separate teams, and this is because again the headcount problem that these guys are saying. If there is separate tester, he would be ideal for 1 week until you finish developing, and companies don't want to do that. So that also helps in reducing headcount. So you got to understand everything. And somebody asked you about keeping our data safe and about privacy. So, although it's not completely related to this talk, I would say if you are using a product for free, you are the product. That's a simple philosophy. Unless you're paying, they would use your data to advertise you, and that's common. You can sort of escape from them by using browsers like Brave, which is an anonymous browser, and they wouldn't, and also using there's search engines like DuckDuckGo, which don't take your data. But I personally am fine to give up a little privacy for getting best results because I'm no Elon Musk, so I don't have. And also, certain advertisings are good. And at least when I gave example about Twitter, I rely on its algorithm to give me more accurate tweets from people I like. So it's totally fine for me to give away certain privacy and say that, hey, I like about this. So give me more, show me more of such. So you got to play that game in a better way so that you don't give away that let's say you have some health issue and if you are directly Googling on about it, you will see unnecessary ads and unnecessary people calling you, which is not required. And shopping as well. If you don't want to buy just shopping for your friend, you see unnecessary ads everywhere. Use something like a Brave browser for that. So, and somebody asked about what skills I need, and I mean, and that talk is about it. Again, summarizing, problem solving is something you need without any doubt, and rest, I mean, you can improve as you go, and also have a little creativity when it comes to software. Software is a great way, and somebody even asked why I chose software because this gives me a way to be creative. I personally, I love writing. I'm a singer as well. But then I could see the same patterns. I could put the same creativity into coding as well. That's where I got enthused from the college level. And then, yeah, coding is an awesome way to be creative and express yourself. Internships, there's right way that you go to a company's website and apply for that. Internships, there's a lot of competition, especially when coming to bigger companies, fan companies. But a faster way or a shortcut is if you know somebody in the team who has an opening for internship, he can refer you and get you into the team very easily. Apart from this, there is no shortcut or a better answer for that. And open source, something we already talked about. And how to pick a good open sources, again, pick a small library from, imagine if you're a Java developer. I sort of found a library called VAVR, which is a functional programming library. Because I love functional programming and I know Java, I picked this and I was able to. And there's also a community, active community on something called Github. So just have those, and this is not so easy, and spend your time. And it's okay even after a few years you weren't able to pick one. It's totally fine. Yeah. And the latest technologies, if you want to get updated about latest, I talked about how you should follow people and how you should kind of subscribe to various newsletters, etc. And at the same time, don't fall yourself into the filmy tech problem. And collaborations, I have an interesting answer for this as well. I mean, if not in a company, working in a company, normally in company we use some systems like Jira, Trello, etc. for collaborations. So I personally as well use this board called Trello. So this is called a Kanban board, wherein this is a Kanban board for my blog. So I'll have various bugs and no-brainers and features that I need to develop. I create a card for it. And for example, if you're collaborating with me, I will share this board with you. And in our day-to-day scrums, we call scrums or stand-up meetings, we sort of open this board, something like this. It might not be similar. And probably assign these to people. And people then put them into doing, done, etc. And that's how manager tracks how are things done. So this is how collaboration is done these days in software engineering, at least in agile teams. And you can as well personally, when you're working on your own personal projects, can start doing these. They're fun as well, right? The kind of, at least I get motivated by using fancy tools, and I that didn't die even till now. Like from the childhood, I love toys, so that keeps everybody, of course, love toys, and even today I see these tools as toys. So they kind of keep me motivated because they're so much fun. You can start as well. Trello, but this concept is everywhere. If you go to Notion as well, they have boards. So you can start with Trello. Trello has been there. That you can use this for collaboration in your project, and then and it also gives you a track of what is finished, what is not, and then all that. So which is great. And then job opportunities. We talked about interviews and how to crack them, and don't sort of think about which has more opportunities, because more opportunities also attract more competition, and less opportunities would mean less competition, but also means like you'll have less opportunities. Better example are me and my wife. Like my wife works in a niche skill set. She works in core Qualcomm Wi-Fi technology, and she hardly have one or two companies she can move to in Hyderabad itself. I work in Java, and there's every other company I can move into. At the same time, the competition I have to face is a lot comparatively more compared to my wife's. So it balances out. So don't sort of fall into fallacy that hey, this has more opportunities. Let me learn that. Learn whatever you feel that suits you or whatever your heart goes into. So the problems are everywhere. So yeah, that's what I want to say. I think I finished all the questions. I kind of consolidated and spoke about the concepts people asked. I can take up any more questions if you have.
Is there any question?